as the Roman soldier, now promoted to the esteemed rank of centurion, Longinus, observed the final moments of Jesus on the cross. Accompanied by fellow soldiers keeping a vigilant watch, an unexpected series of events unfolded. The seismic impact of an earthquake and other supernatural occurrences left them not only terribly frightened, but also in awe, prompting them to declare, "Truly, this was the Son of God." Matthew chapter 27, verses number 53, Amplified Bible. In his role as a centurion, Longinus bore the responsibility of ensuring the crucifixion proceeded meticulously and without complications. Typically commanding 100 soldiers during such executions, he had ascended through the military ranks, marked by his courage and intelligence. Operating at the highest echelon, he embodied the epitome of a cold and efficient soldier, faithfully executing the orders of his superiors. For this, we are looking into what happened to the Roman soldier who saw the last minutes of Jesus. What did he see? What accounted for his proclaim afterward upon all his military might? Before we delve in, please take a moment to like and subscribe to our channel to never miss an update when we post new videos. Now let's proceed. The crucifixion scene, however, proved to be unparalleled in its impact on the seasoned centurion. Even as a hardened Roman, he couldn't ignore the remarkable nature of this event, leading him to acknowledge the innocence of Jesus, who was crucified for a crime he did not commit. The centurion grappled with a myriad of emotions, realizing he had overseen the crucifixion of an innocent man. These were not the tremulous words of a fearful recruit, but the considered conclusions of a veteran who had witnessed countless brutal ends, having been responsible for putting many to death. Despite the vehement condemnation by Jewish religious leaders who accused Jesus of blasphemy and secured Pontius Pilate's conviction, the centurion defied the prevailing sentiment. Overwhelmed by the compelling arguments in favor of Christ, he questioned the very nature of this execution, sensing an extraordinary difference compared to his past experiences. The centurion's transformation was prompted by various scenes from the arrest, trial, and crucifixion of Jesus. Notably, Jesus' response to the injustice inflicted upon him by his countrymen, marked by silence in the face of false accusations, left an indelible impression. The centurion pondered the high priest's inquiries, Jesus' affirmation of being the Son of God, and the anticipation of his future revelation as the Son of Man. Further intensifying the centurion's realization was the governor's soldiers' cruel mockery of Jesus at the praetorium. Stripped, clad in a scarlet robe and thorny crown, subjected to spitting and relentless blows, Jesus endured the humiliation silently. Pilate's futile attempts to appease the crowd by releasing Barabbas and subjecting Jesus to scourging underscored the depth of Jesus' concern for their forgiveness, not his escape. These are all biblical views on the accounts of what the Roman soldier said when he saw the last hour of Jesus. Now I want to share with you something big about this proclamation today that is not written in the books of the Bible. The name Longinus is said to be the name of the Roman centurion. His name first appeared in the apocryphal Gospel of Nicodemus. The lance is called in Christianity the Holy Lance, Lancea, and the story is related in the Gospel of John during the crucifixion. This act is said to have created the last of the 5 holy wounds of Christ. This person, unnamed in the Gospels, is further identified in some versions of the legend as the centurion present at the crucifixion, who said that Jesus was the Son of God. So he is considered as one of the first Christians and Roman converts. Longinus's legend grew over the years to the point that he was said to have converted to Christianity after the crucifixion. and he is traditionally venerated as a saint in the Roman Catholic Church, Eastern Orthodox Church, and several other Christian communions. Longinus was not originally a saint in the Christian tradition. An early tradition, found in a 6th or 7th century pseudepigraphical letter of Herod to Pilate, claims that Longinus suffered for having pierced Jesus and that he was condemned to a cave where every night a lion came and mauled him until dawn, after which his body healed back to normal in a pattern that would repeat until the end of time. Later, traditions turned him into a Christian convert, but yet Sabine Baring-Gould, an Anglican priest, a hagiographer, an antiquarian, a novelist, a folk song collector, and an eclectic scholar, observed and said, "The name of Longinus was not known to the Greeks previous to the Patriarch Germanus in 715. It was introduced among the Westerns from the apocryphal Gospel of Nicodemus. There is no reliable authority for the acts and martyrdom of this saint." Longinus is likely derived from the Greek word lonche, which refers to the lance mentioned in John chapter 19, verse 34. This connection is seen in the Latinized form of the name and its association with the soldier holding the spear during the crucifixion. The earliest known appearance of the name Longinus is found in a Syriac Gospel manuscript illuminated by Rabulus in the year 586. It is presented in horizontal Greek letters as Loginos, beside an illustration of the crucifixion, specifically the soldier with the spear. The spear wielded by Longinus is identified as the Holy Lance, and in more recent times, especially in occult circles, it has been referred to as the Spear of Destiny. The veneration of this sacred relic dates back to at least the 6th century in Jerusalem, though historical reports do not invoke either the centurion or the name Longinus. The spear, known as the Lance of Longinus, plays a significant role in the legends of the Holy Grail. Its connection to Longinus and its purported mystical properties contribute to its significance in various myths and narratives surrounding the quest for the Holy Grail. The name Longinus and the associated spear have gained cultural and occult significance over time. While rooted in Christian tradition, especially in the context of the crucifixion, the figure of Longinus and the Holy Lance have become subjects of interest and interpretation in broader cultural and mystical contexts. With all these said, we can conclude that the name of the Roman centurion who said Jesus was the Son of God was called Longinus, and that he was present when Jesus actually died. Jesus died on Calvary, but things surrounding his death are overwhelming, comparing a veteran Roman centurion who has undergone a series of training and watched more horrific scenes in his life to be terrified and proclaim that he, Jesus, is the Son of God, is not a small thing we should joke about. Remember, he was there all this while from the beginning of his arrest to his last moment, so he saw it all and believed that what was happening was not just a normal day. Things that started happening were not something that science or long services and experience in being a Roman centurion could explain. This led to his proclamation. Now, what are the things that happened when Jesus died while he, the Roman centurion, was standing there, watching? According to the Gospel accounts in the New Testament, several significant events occurred when Jesus died, as witnessed by the Roman centurion. The Gospel of Matthew, chapter 27, verse 51, records that at the moment of Jesus' death, there was a great earthquake, and the rocks were split. This dramatic natural event symbolized the profound impact of Jesus' death on creation. The same quotation, when you read, it further also mentions that the veil of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. The tearing of the temple veil was symbolic of the removal of the barrier between God and humanity, signifying access to God through the death of Jesus. Matthew, chapter 27, verses 52 to 53, describes the resurrection of some saints who had died, and they appeared to many in Jerusalem. This event is unique to Matthew's Gospel and is not recorded in other accounts. It emphasizes the victory over death through Jesus' sacrifice. Then there comes the man who was there while these things were happening. The Roman centurion, he also, after piercing the side of Jesus to ensure that he is actually dead, had blood mixed with water come out of Jesus' body onto his eyes. Although blindness or other eye problems are not mentioned until after the 10th century. Petrus Comestor was one of the first to add an eyesight problem to the legend, and his text can be translated as blind, dim-sighted, or weak-sighted. Also, the biblical accounts, such as those found in the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, do not provide explicit details about the centurion's physical condition, including whether he was blind or not. The focus of these accounts is on the centurion's confession of Jesus as the Son of God and the events surrounding the crucifixion. On that note, we can highly say that the Roman centurion confession, proclamation, or whatever you will call it, is not fake or made up. He had, in all likelihood, presided over the crucifixion of hundreds or even thousands of men, and must have become insensitive to the agony these men endured. It is most likely that this man was present from the time Jesus was brought to Pilate right until the Lord's body was lowered from the cross and given to Joseph of Arimathea. He may even have been present with the detachment of soldiers that aided in Jesus' arrest on the night of his betrayal. This man would have accompanied Jesus from the time the Jewish leaders brought him to the praetorium. He would have ordered his men to beat Jesus, caring little for who he was, knowing him only to be just another in a long line of people he was commanded to execute. He would have been nearby when his men dressed Jesus in a robe, pressed a crown of thorns onto his head, and walked him to Golgotha. He would have given the order to proceed with the crucifixion. This Roman centurion is mentioned in 3 of the 4 Gospel accounts. He is mentioned not for his cruelty, ruthlessness, or ability as a soldier, but for a marvelous transformation that occurred immediately after the death of one of his prisoners. Having seen so many crucifixions, the Roman centurion knew what to expect from his prisoners. Most of them who were sentenced to be crucified were criminals, brigands, thieves, and murderers. He had heard countless men scream in agony while being whipped and plead for their lives before Pilate. From their crosses, he had heard them shout curses to men below and blasphemies to God above. The behavior of the thieves on either side of Jesus was all too familiar, as they mocked and ridiculed Jesus as he hung between them. If God can tear the veil in the temple, he can rend a Roman soldier's understanding of a dying Christ. That is, if God can split open Jewish sacred space, then a Roman centurion's heart and mind can be opened to see God's world. Mark tells us that a lone Roman centurion watched closely the workings of God. Far from blinding him, the cross became the paradigm for seeing. And that is one of the ironies of the whole event. It is a dumbfounding twist, and partly causes us to cringe. No, it can't be true that the Roman centurion knew or meant what he said. The meaning of the confession is to be found elsewhere. But the fact is that the Roman centurion saw God working where God was most active. The sad irony is that nobody saw it. We read Mark and we get it. Why didn't everyone else standing around the cross see it? For the ones who were supposed to see him, the Jewish people, there was blindness. When we get to Mark chapter 15, the story turns, and unexpectedly, it is the bit player who sees, even while the privileged characters miss the whole point. Mark's gospel is all about seeing. God tears the veil and access is opened up to a new chapter in the life of God among humanity. And the first to take a step towards this is a Roman centurion who sees God working. This makes sense of the narrative, not because it is Mark's narrative, but because it is the Word of God. That is, God works where people don't expect to find Him working. And that's why the cross is blinding and why God is most concealed where He is most revealed. God showed up, but His people could not see Him. He was in the world, and the world was made by Him, and the world knew Him not. He came unto His own, and His own received Him not. John 1:10-11. This is really strange. Perhaps this really strange thing is still true today. Perhaps the text does not fit our ideas of what is appropriate to the plan of God. And when that happens, we find that we don't have a category for all of this stuff actually being true and really happening, or at least that the Roman centurion didn't really get it. The danger here is that we won't find God doing what He wants to do, and we will protect Him from Him with a safe retreat to the form of the story, the idea of the plot, the turn of narrative, the devices of the author, and all the rest. We will find in Mark's Gospel a narrative theory that has left us saying that the Roman centurion didn't mean what he said, but that he spoke with irony, or something else of that sort. In reality, we just saw God tear the fabric of what a Roman centurion knew best. There was something else about the way Jesus died that convinced the Roman centurion that his enemies were wrong and that he truly was the Son of God. Listen very attentively to Mark 15:37 and 39. In 37, and Jesus cried with a loud voice and gave up the ghost. 39. And when the centurion, which stood over against him, saw that he so cried out and gave up the ghost, he said, Truly this man was the Son of God. Jesus cried with a loud voice right before he died. Why would Jesus' loud voice cause the centurion to say, Truly this man was the Son of God? The loud cry of Jesus is very unusual because men who were crucified usually have no strength left, especially when near death. But Jesus' death was no ordinary one, nor was his shout the last gasp of a dying man. It was a shout of victory. The centurion had seen it all. At the beginning of the crucifixion, he was an unbeliever. But he heard Jesus pray for him. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Luke 23:34. He saw the darkness fall over the face of the earth. He saw the earthquake. He feared greatly. Matthew 27:54. And now he saw Jesus die as he had never seen any other crucified man die. All the others became so weak they couldn't breathe and died in silence. But Jesus cried with a loud voice. Where did he get the strength to do so? This Roman centurion had presided over many crucifixions, but no other man had died with a shout of victory. The Roman centurion was convinced Christ's enemies had been wrong. He himself had been wrong. Looking up at the dead body of Jesus on the cross, he confessed, Truly, this man was the Son of God. Going on to our last question. Was the Roman centurion converted? I firmly believe so, and here is why. He was an unbeliever. But now he says, Truly, this man was the Son of God. This is surely as good as Peter's confession. Jesus asked Peter, Whom say ye that I am? Matthew 16:15. Peter answered, The Son of the living God. Matthew 16:16. Jesus said, Flesh and blood hath not revealed it unto thee, but my Father, which is in heaven. Matthew 16:17. The Roman centurion surely had as much faith as Peter. If Peter's testimony of Jesus as the Son of the living God came from the Father's illumination, the Roman centurion's testimony must have come from the same source. and the Roman centurion made a better confession of his faith in Jesus than Peter did. Peter forsook Jesus and fled. The Roman centurion stood in full view of Christ's enemies and fearlessly testified, "Truly, this man was the Son of God." But the Roman centurion said something else of equal importance. Luke tells us that he also said, "Certainly, this was a righteous man." Luke 23:47. This may not sound as important, but it is. This Roman centurion said both. This man was the Son of God. This man was righteous. It is the same thing the dying thief had said when he was converted on the cross next to Jesus. This man hath done nothing amiss. Luke 23:41. The Roman centurion heard the converted thief say that. He had not believed it before. He had mocked Jesus earlier, just as the repentant thief had. Luke 23:36, Matthew 27:44. But now, in their conversions, the repentant thief and the Roman centurion agree. This man hath done nothing amiss. Certainly this was a righteous man. By divine revelation, both the repentant thief and the Roman centurion saw that Jesus was not guilty. More than that, they saw his blessed righteousness. Did they know more? Scripture is silent, but they knew enough to say that Jesus was sinless, guiltless of the so-called crimes for which his enemies crucified him. The repentant thief knew enough to call Jesus Lord. The Roman centurion knew enough to say, "Truly, this man was the Son of God." Do you believe that the repentant thief was converted? Do you also believe that the Roman centurion was converted? Let us know in the comment section, and you can check out our other videos showing now on your screen. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.